Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Perfect World based on novel. So let's start. The laughter reverberated through every single corner of the capital like a devil's curse, causing everyone's body to suddenly stiffen. They became just like statues, unable to move. Xiao Yan. This name, which had already become somewhat foreign, caused the faces of many people in the city to be at a loss after hearing it. 3 years was enough time for people to forget many things. Of course, this kind of faded memory needed only a small trigger in order to allow it to once again return to everyone's mind. Under this soft laughter, the faces of many people continued to be at a loss for a moment before waves of exclamations were suddenly emitted. Xiao Yan. He is that fellow who had turned the Misty Cloud sect upside down 3 years ago. Wasn't it said that he had died while being chased by the Misty Cloud sect? Nonsense. He was only chased out of the Jioma Empire by the Misty Cloud sect. However, it is really unexpected that he has already become this strong in these short 3 years. It is really too terrifying. The Xiao clan seems to be the clan destroyed by the Misty Cloud sect, right? Didn't you hear what he had just said? He has come to collect debt. The Misty Cloud sect, TSK, looks like they need to be prepared to repay the blood debt. This Xiao Yang was able to turn the Misty Cloud sect upside down 3 years ago, and even killed their first elder. From the looks of his attack, just now, it is clearly much stronger than 3 years ago. Looks like this Misty Cloud sect cannot be arrogant for much longer. Private conversations from all over the city were repeatedly spread. Within only a short period of time, this information was spread throughout the capital. The black-robed, young man carrying the heavy ruler in the sky had once again been found in the memories of everyone from 3 years ago. Jiolao watched the black-robed, young man flapping his jade-green fire wings in the sky from the tall tower within the imperial city. Even though he had identified the latter through his aura earlier, this guardian of the imperial family still let out a long sigh when he saw Xiao Yang truly reveal his identity. A glow flickered within both of his eyes. He smiled and spoke in a manner as though he had removed a great-grandfather. He is Yao Yi slowly recovered from the shock of the person in the sky defeating Yundu and the 3 others with one punch. Her eyebrows became vertical when she heard the somewhat familiar name as she spoke. Do you still remember the Yang Xiao from the alchemist grand meeting back then? Jiao Tian laughed. A glow flickered in Yao Yi's eyes. She had also recalled that renowned person within the capital 3 years ago. Shock drew across her elegant, pretty face. It is actually him. Was he not chased out of the Jioma Empire by the Misty Cloud sect? He can naturally return after leaving. Jiolao laughed and said, I told you back then that this person was definitely not an ordinary person. TSK, 3 years ago, his true strength was but that of a Da dosha. Now, however, from the sharpness and speed that he had displayed when he intervened earlier, it is likely that even I am no match for him. Yao Yi was immediately stunned when she heard this. She was extremely clear about Jiao Tian's strength. The only person in this entire Jioma Empire who could defeat him was likely that old roan from the Misty Cloud sect. However, no matter how one put it, Yun Shan was an expert who had been training for many years. Yet, this Xiao Yang was merely around 20 years old even if they rounded up his age. An elite Do Huang, who was only around 20 years old. Even with Yao Yi's cool head, just thinking about this caused her to be momentarily absent-minded. This fellow was indeed frightening. Great-grandfather's eyes are indeed very sharp. Fortunately, we did not gain any enmity with him. Yao Yi gently patted her voluminous breasts as she spoke in a rejoiced manner. Actually back then I did think that this fellow would definitely be extraordinary in the future, but I never expected that he is able to reach this level within just 3 short years. Jiolao sighed. A gloating expression immediately surfaced on his face as he said, however, this is just as well. The Misty Cloud sect has destroyed the Xiao clan, and has already become irreconcilable enemies with Xiao Yang. In this way, Jioma Empire has an additional strong person like Xiao Yang. I no longer need to be overly worried about Yun Shan. Yao Yi, remember, make contact with Xiao Yang after today's matter is over. At the very least, we must let him gain a favorable opinion of our imperial family. Jiolao mused for a moment before suddenly speaking. An unusual glow flickered within Yao Yi's eyes as she looked at the black-robed young man flapping his jade-green fire wings in the sky. This fellow could really be considered a great genius favored by the heavens. I suggest that we immediately maneuver our army to suppress the Misty Cloud sect's attack. Although acting at this moment could not be considered to be delivering charcoal in a snowstorm, it is better than waiting for everything to settle. It is likely that the effect of trying to show our goodwill will be extremely weak at that time. Yao Yi fluttered her eyelashes gently and spoke in a gentle voice. However, she was displaying an impressive schemingness. She naturally possessed a mind that an ordinary person could not compare with in order to be groomed as the female emperor of the Jioma Empire. Jiao Xingtian hesitated a little upon hearing this before nodding heavily. He knew that he would be somewhat stupid if he were to still be indecisive at such a moment. Now that the Jioma Empire possessed a strong person like Xiao Yan, they would have some chances of victory even if they were to end up fighting with Yunshan in the future. Yao Yi immediately rejoiced when she saw Jiao Xingtian nod his head. She immediately ceased speaking any nonsense and immediately began to give the command. At the Alchemist Association, Fa Ma exhaled a breath that was suppressed in his chest. He lifted his head and studied the black-robed young man in the distant sky. A smile was revealed on his old face. He also knew that Xiao Yang's sudden appearance would break the situation where the Misty Cloud sect dominated the Jioma Empire. This fellow is indeed not an ordinary person. Yunshan, allowing him to flee back, then might well be the thing that you regret the most in your entire life. The Mu clan. The head of the Mu clan, Mu Cheng, also slowly withdrew his gaze from the sky and turned his head to look at all the core members of the Mu clan. He could not resist proudly laughing. All of you have short-sighted mouse eyes. Back then, all of you found so many excuses when I said to quietly lend Xiao Yang a hand. Does it now feel good to have a slap thrown on your faces? Ha ha. All the clan members in the Mu clan could only smile bitterly and nod their heads when they saw the proudly laughing Mu Chen. All of them helplessly moaned in their hearts. Who was able to imagine that the fellow who was being chased like a dog that had lost its home back then would actually be able to reach a stage where he could truly challenge the Misty Cloud sect within a short 3 years? Compared to the various laughs in the other few areas, the atmosphere in the Nalan clan appeared exceptionally stiff and depressing. This depressing atmosphere was emitted from the completely stiffened Nalan Jie's body after that soft laughter of Xiao Yang sounded. Nalan Su also bitterly sighed as he looked at Nalan Jie, whose face was so stiff that he appeared like a dry corpse. That expert in the sky who could reverse the entire situation of the Jioma Empire had nearly become their son-in-law back then. Father Nalan Su finally could not resist whispering a moment later. A sigh which was filled with dense bitterness was slowly emitted from Nalan Jie's mouth. He waved his hand in a depressed manner and said, although I am not certain if Xiao Yang will still pay attention to us at this moment, we should try our best to make contact with him for the sake of our clan. Father, it's all because of Yanran's selfish, young character. Otherwise, Nalan Su could not help but say when he looked at Nalan Jie's dejected manner. We cannot put the entire blame on her. Back then, Xiao Yang helped me expel the poison, but we did not help him when he ended up being chased after by the Misty Cloud sect, because we were afraid of the latter. It is likely that Xiao Yang will not forget about this matter given his character. Hence, I am also responsible for these matters. Nalan Jie smiled sadly and mocked himself. It is really unexpected that in my old age my eyes would become this blind and my heart this muddled. Nalan Su was silent. He could sense just how much regret was in Nalan Jie's heart at this moment. However, there was no medicine for regret that they could purchase in this world. The black-robed, young man, who was carrying the heavy ruler in the sky, slowly turned around. He studied the completely stunned Hai Budong not far away. He smiled slightly and slowly bowed. Old Hai, thank you for taking care of the Xiao clan these few years. Xiao Yang. Hai Budong muttered. A moment later, he finally recovered and looked at the somewhat familiar young face. A wild joy gradually surged onto his face. You brat, you have finally returned. Xiao Yang also smiled when he saw old Hai's extremely excited face. However, he did not have the time to go into the details when a cry filled with disbelief was transmitted over. Xiao Yang. How can it be? You are actually still alive. I will first dispatch these people here before conversing more with old Hai. Xiao Yang smiled to Hai Budong before turning his head and looking at the faces of disbelief of Yundu and the other 3 people not far away. He laughed softly. How can I die so easily when I have yet to kill old dog Yunshan with my hands? Back then, I said that I, Xiao Yang, will return once again. Yundu's expression changed rapidly. Xiao Yang's sudden appearance had completely broken their initial plan. However, it was fortunate that this fellow was exactly the same as he was back then. There was only him alone. Given the enormous faction of the Misty Cloud sect, this fellow would not gain anything even if he were to return. The city immediately emitted waves of exclamation following the appearance of the 5 human figures. One could see 5 bright Do Chi wings. These 5 people were actually all experts of the Do Wang class. It seemed that the Misty Cloud sect had truly put in a great effort in order to eliminate the Prima clan, without any obstacles. 7 Do Wangs, 2 Do Huangs. This kind of frightening lineup once again caused the entire city to emit a sound of the inhalation of cool air. This Misty Cloud sect faction was indeed extremely frightening. From the looks of it, even with the return of a strong person like Xiao Yang today, one would have difficulty obtaining much of an advantage. Are you going to rely on larger numbers again? Indeed, a dog cannot stop itself from eating shit. Xiao Yang was also startled when he saw the 9 human figures suspended in the sky. However, he immediately laughed with some interest. Xiao Yang, be careful, you cannot be careless. Hai Budong swiftly rushed to Xiao Yang's side and spoke with a solemn expression. Xiao Yang smiled and nodded. He immediately raised his gaze and looked at Yundu on the opposite side. Suddenly he laughed. Do you think that I will still suffer the same disadvantage that I suffered back then without making any preparations? Xiao Yang suddenly clapped his hands softly after saying this. That clap was just like thunder that swept across the sky. Yundu and the others were stunned when they saw Xiao Yang's actions. An instant later, the sound of rushing wind suddenly sounded from Xiao Yang's back. The gazes of the entire city were hurriedly shifted when the sound of rushing wind appeared. Finally, numerous gazes became dull as they looked at the sky outside of the capital. Over 10 human figures were swiftly rushing over from that direction. The Do Chi wings on the backs of these people were so bright that they appeared extremely dazzling. Next, let us give you a taste of your own medicine. The expressions of Yundu and the others instantly turned pale when Xiao Yang's teasing laughter sounded. The rays of light flew across the sky and appeared in the sky above the capital a moment later. Over a dozen human figures were flapping the Do Chi wings on their backs, as they eventually sat and waited while surrounding Yundu and the others in a semicircle shape in front of the dull gazes of the entire city. Their faces all contained some ridicule. The entire city once again became silent at the appearance of these 10+ human figures with wings extending from their backs. Countless numbers of people were stunned as they looked at the large Do Wang unit that had suddenly appeared. Over 10 expert Do Wangs. This lineup, many people quietly inhaled a breath of cool air. Their heads began to feel giddy. There were at most only a couple of dozen expert Do Wangs in the entire Jioma Empire. However, they were actually able to see so many of them today. The expressions of Yundu's group had turned pale white at the appearance of these 10+ human figures. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Only at this moment did they truly feel a kind of terror. The current Xiao Yang already possessed a frightening strength that could shake the Misty Cloud sect. Xiao Yang, are all these your people? Hai Budong was also shocked by the sudden appearance of such a huge lineup as he anxiously asked. Xiao Yang smiled and nodded. Hai Budong only sighed in relief upon seeing Xiao Yang nod his head. Joy immediately surged in his heart. He used his strength to pat Xiao Yang's shoulders and smiled as he said, "Good fellow. You are indeed no longer that reckless little fellow back then. You actually know how to gather an army now." Xiao Yang laughed softly. He raised his eyes and looked at Yundu's group on the opposite side. A coldness surfaced in his dark black eyes. "Cuckoo, 2 Do Huangs, 7 Do Wangs. Very good. It is really unexpected that the Misty Cloud sect has served such a big gift the moment I return. Since that is the case, I shall unceremoniously receive it." Xiao Yang smiled and immediately waved his hand gently. His simple words containing dark, cold killing intent chilled a countless number of people. "Leave no one." "Yes." Lin Yang and the others nodded heavily after hearing Xiao Yang's words. Immediately numerous powerful Do Chis, that were not weaker than the misty cloud sects, Do Wangs erupted from their bodies. Finally, they flapped their wings and cut through the air, transforming into numerous blurry, black figures containing a sharp wind as they charged at the somewhat anxious misty cloud sex expert. Xiao Yang, aren't you afraid of being choked to death by trying to swallow us in one go? Yundu's heart also pounded wildly when he saw the cold sternness of Xiao Yang as he waved his hand. Threads of wildness immediately surged onto Yundu's eyes as he furiously spoke. All Misty Cloud Sect's disciples, prepare for an all-out fight. We will completely lay waste to the Primer clan, even if we have to fight to our last man. The Misty Cloud Sect's disciples below, who had paused because of the activity in the sky, immediately emitted an orderly cry after hearing Yundu's furious roar. They once again waved their weapons and charged toward the interior of the Primer clan like a torrent. Under this wild attack by the Misty Cloud sect, the defensive lines within the manor were swiftly torn apart. Old Hai, I will leave those 2 Do Huangs for you to handle. Leave the remaining Do Wangs to the others. Xiao Yang frowned slightly when he saw the swaying defensive line of the manor, which was about to fall apart. He turned his head toward Hai Budong and spoke softly. Only Lin Yang and some expert Do Wangs had appeared this time around. Xiao Yang did not allow Medusa, Old Yin Jiyu, and the other expert, who were of the Do Huang class, or stronger, to appear at this moment. There was always a need to hold something back no matter what one did. Exposing all of one's trump cards to the Misty Cloud sect the moment he returned was an extremely foolish act. The current Xiao Yang would naturally not do this. No problem. Hai Budong nodded without any hesitation when he heard this. Knowing that the situation was urgent, he did not say any unnecessary words. The ice wings on his back were flapped and he rushed out before charging into the chaotic battleground in the sky, completely blocking the 2 Do Huangs Yundu and Yunsho. The dark green flames on Xiao Yang's back also moved a little after he saw this. After which, he rushed to the manor below. Use all of them. Ya Fei's eyebrows were vertical as she cried out loud. However, her cry had just sounded when a black figure abruptly flashed down from the sky. The black figure landed on the ground and the black-robed young man carrying a heavy ruler smiled toward Ya Fei, revealing his white teeth. Ya Fei Jie, you have become even prettier than I last saw you 3 years ago. Jie's older sister Ya Fei was somewhat absent-minded as she looked at the young face, which had gained an additional maturity compared to 3 years ago. At this moment, it was as though the anxious cries that were repeatedly transmitted from her surroundings had disappeared. A sourness gradually surged onto Ya Fei's nose and her eyes also became a sleek red. Her somewhat hoarse, yet moving voice was emitted from her red mouth, "You horrible brat, you are still willing to return. These 3 years, you have worked hard, because of the Xiao clan." Xiao Yang sighed as he looked at the mist forming in her alluring peach blossom eyes. He knew that the pressure Ya Fei carried during these few years was quite great. If not for old High support, it was likely that she would be unable to endure on. He little grievances that Ya Fei originally felt in her heart instantly disappeared like a smoke, when she heard this low voice that contained some apology. She cracked a smile that was so enchanting that it could enrapture an entire city. "That's right, quickly come and see your older brother." Ya Fei suddenly recovered and hurriedly moved her body aside. Behind her was a long-haired man, who was seated on a wheelchair. His eyes, which were usually calm and indifferent, were filled with a gentle and faint excitement at this moment. "Big brother." Xiao Yang was startled. His gaze hurriedly turned to the man, who had half of his face covered by his long hair. "Xiao Yangzi, you have finally returned. Cuckoo, good little fellow. You didn't disappoint, big brother. You are the glory of the Xiao clan and father." Gratification surfaced on the corner of Xiao Ding's mouth as he spoke softly when he saw Xiao Yang, who appeared even more mature than he did 3 years ago. Xiao Yang quickly walked to Xiao Ding's side. A wild joy surfaced on his face. However, when his gaze swept toward the wheelchair that Xiao Ding was sitting on, his eyes instantly narrowed and his body also swiftly became dark and cold. "Big brother, your leg?" "I'm fine. My leg is poisoned and has become completely crippled. Fortunately, there is nothing wrong with my head and hands." Xiao Ding laughed as replied. Xiao Yang clenched his teeth tightly as he looked at the faint smile on Xiao Ding's face. He could imagine just how difficult his big brother's life was during these couple of years, when he was protecting the remaining members of the Xiao clan. Big brother, it has been hard on you these few years. Xiao Yan slowly knelt beside Xiao Ding. His eyes were completely red. The hoarse voice of his was finally unable to suppress the emotion in his heart. A large rough palm slowly rubbed Xiao Yang's head. Xiao Ding smiled and slowly spoke with a warm voice, "Third brother, I am not the only one who has suffered. Don't tell me that you have lived these 3 years well." Xiao Yang's sleeves wiped his eyes with all his strength. He raised his head and laughed. It was all right. However, big brother will not need to suffer in the future. I hope that is so. All right, brat, just what do you look like crying in public? Moreover, now is not the time to reminisce about old times. Xiao Ding patted Xiao Yang's shoulders and reprimanded with a smile. Xiao Yang smiled and nodded. He stood up from the ground, turned his head, and softly spoke to a similarly red-eyed Ya Fei by the side. Ya Fei Jia, thank you very much. Leave the misty cloud sect outside to me. Xiao Yang did not wait for Ya Fei to reply after he said those words. His body flashed and appeared in the air above the manor. Hey, be careful. There are too many of them. Ya Fei hurriedly cried out when she saw Xiao Yang rushed into the air. Ya Fei Jia, tell the members of the Prima clan to withdraw. There is no longer a need for these defensive lines. Ya Fei was startled when she heard the voice that was transmitted from the air. She did not hesitate as she waved her delicate hand. The members of the Prima clan, who were defending the defensive line, swiftly withdrew. With the withdrawal of the Prima clan members, the white-colored torrent immediately surged in and began occupying most of the manor from all directions. A slight puffing sound suddenly appeared, just as the disciples of the Misty Cloud sect wildly occupied the manor. Flames suddenly and strangely surged out of the body of a Misty Cloud sect's disciple, who was at the front of the white torrent. Immediately, his entire person turned into a pile of ashes in the blink of an eye and burst apart. The strange fire that had suddenly appeared caused everyone to be startled. However, while everyone was still startled, numerous low, solemn explosive sounds repeatedly rang out. Hence, the Misty Cloud sect's disciples, who had swarmed into the manor, were turned into burning people one after another in front of the countless number of shocked eyes belonging to the observers both in and outside of the manor. They finally burst apart in a strange manner. None of them emitted a miserable cry, because of their imminent death from the beginning until the end. The entire place only had the soft muffled sound that was emitted from the bursting apart of flesh. At this moment, an unusual cold darkness lingered in the hearts of a countless number of people. The Misty Cloud sect's disciples swarmed toward the innermost layer of the manor like floodwaters. The people behind were completely unaware of the unexpected changes that had occurred at the front due to their limited vision. Hence, when their swarming momentum gradually entered a certain boundary, the sickle of the death god sliced over. A terror and disturbance finally spread in all directions, as an increasing number of Misty Cloud sect's disciples' bodies strangely auto-ignited. Hence, the atmosphere fell greatly, spurred on by the terror. Finally, they were unable to endure any longer and began to wildly withdraw. The white-colored torrent that had just come surging over like floodwaters once again fled miserably in all directions a moment later. Their panicked manner was as though they were afraid that the strange auto-ignition would descend upon them. Hence, the enormous attack of the Misty Cloud sect began to self-destruct, without being attacked under this strange auto-ignition of bodies. Fear and shock was present on everyone's faces. Something that could kill someone without shape and color had an even easier time eroding a person's courage compared to sharp knives and swords. When the Misty Cloud sect's disciples fled for their lives out of the outermost part of the manor, the unusual phenomenon of the auto-ignition of bodies gradually began to disappear. However, at this moment, the Misty Cloud sect's disciples had already suffered serious losses. During that terrifying time of auto-ignition earlier, at least half of the people were turned to dust in an extremely strange manner. The manor was covered by a kind of grayish-white powder, as the Misty Cloud sect's disciples withdrew in a torrent-like manner. Due to the large amount of it, it had resulted in a layer that was as thick as a finger. The powder danced when the breeze blew over. The entire sky was adrift with terror and bizarre danger, giving one the creeps. Both the inside and outside of the entire manor had turned into a dead silence under this treacherous feeling. Just a moment ago, Half of the Misty Cloud sect's disciples had been turned into powdery ashes in less than 10 minutes. Regardless of whether it was the members of the Primer clan, the Misty Cloud sect's disciples, or the surrounding observers, all of them felt a chill over their bodies, as though they were in an abyss. The members of the Primer clan, within the manor, looked at the powder outside of the manor's courtyard. They, too, involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Their gazes looked at one another with their eyes filled with shock. The Misty Cloud sect's disciples, who had beaten them until they were unable to retaliate earlier, were turned into firecrackers that randomly blasted all over the place. After which, over half of them were eliminated. Only at this moment did they truly understand that in the eyes of a truly strong person, a human life was really mere dirt. Fei was similarly shocked by this frightening scene. Her enchanting pretty face was somewhat pale as she raised her head to look into the air. The black-robed, young man's indifferent face had a thread of ruthlessness to it. She sighed once again. The hatred Xiao Yan felt toward the Misty Cloud sect had truly reached a stage where he anxiously wanted to eat their flesh. Fei was quite familiar with Xiao Yan's character. Normally, he would not do something like this. Hence, the Misty Cloud sect only had themselves to blame for all this. This fellow is no longer that soft-hearted young man from back then. However, this might be considered a good thing for him. Xiao Ding did not felt the slightest resistance to Xiao Yang starting a massacre. Instead, he felt a faint joy within his heart as he laughed and slowly spoke. His voice contained gratification and an unknown soft sigh. Fei nodded her head slightly. She was just about to speak when the sound of orderly horse hoofs suddenly sounded outside of the manor. She raised her eyes and was surprised to see a dark black torrent suddenly swarming from all over the city. A moment later, they had completely surrounded those Misty Cloud sect's disciples outside the manor, not allowing even water to flow past them. Fei nodded. Her gaze looked at the torrent of metal only to see that a pathway was split opened. A strong horse slowly sailed out. There was a lady wearing a purple-black gown and a phoenix crown seated on it. The lady was tall and her eyes contained a dignity as they flashed. From her appearance, she was naturally the future female emperor, who would gradually control the Jioma Empire's imperial family, Yao Yi. The Misty Cloud sect has ignored the laws and has assembled a mob to invade into the capital. Bring all of them away. Yao Yi waved her delicate hand and roared. Her eyes were cold as she glanced at the Misty Cloud sect's disciples who were surrounded. Perhaps they had lost all their courage from having been massacred by Xiao Yang earlier, or perhaps it was because of the threat of the many 2 to 3 meter long spears. But these Misty Cloud sect's disciples did not put up much resistance this time around. Instead, they placed their weapons down in a relaxed manner, and allowed these gruff tiger wolf-like soldiers to place a shackle that suppressed Do Qi on their bodies. Yao Yi also quietly sighed in relief when she saw that these Misty Cloud sect's disciples did not resist. These people from the Misty Cloud sect did have some ability. There might be some trouble if they were to resist. Yao Yi settled the problem in this place before her gaze faintly swept across the manor. Her delicate hand under her sleeves immediately tightened when her gaze swept over the powder on the ground. She had saw some of those people suddenly auto-ignite earlier. Hence, her expression was currently somewhat uneasy. This kind of strength was really too great. Was a truly strong person so frightening? No wonder great-grandfather had always chosen to endure before he had absolute confidence to deal with Yun Shan. Her gaze was raised and she looked at the black-robed, young man in the air. A somewhat moving smile was revealed on Yao Yi's pretty face. Her gentle soft voice was emitted from her red lips. May I know if I should call you Mr. Yang Xiao or Mr. Xiao Yang? Xiao Yang glanced at this somewhat familiar-looking woman. He knit his brows and was unable to recall the latter's identity within a short amount of time. This is Princess Yao Yi. You met her back then. Fei's laughter was slowly transmitted to Xiao Yang while he was frowning, causing him to come to a sudden realization. Yao Yi smiled at Fei as the former saw her slowly walk out from the manor. She immediately jumped down from her horse and held the latter's hand affectionately. She said, Fei Jia, I'm sorry. Originally, I wanted to come as early as possible, but the time needed to dispatch the army is also quite long. This aura, Yun Shan's eyes were filled with disbelief. He suddenly stood up and muttered with his mouth, how can it be? This little fellow is actually still alive, the muttering had just sounded when Yunshan seemed to recall something. His expression suddenly changed. His body flashed and disappeared from this training room in a ghost-like manner. The direction he had sensed the eruption of this aura earlier was clearly that of the capital. At this moment, there was a large unit that the Misty Cloud sect had sent to the capital. The grand hall of the Misty Cloud sect was completely chaotic. Various noises mixed with panicked voices. Finally, they lingered within the hall, causing one's head to expand with giddiness. Yunshan also knit his brows, because of this chaos, when his body flashed into the grand hall. He cried out in a deep stern voice, "Quiet down. What a scandal to be in such confusion." The noise within the hall immediately began to quietly disappear, when everyone saw Yunshan, who had suddenly appeared. It was finally completely quiet a moment later. Yunshan coldly snorted only after seeing that the grand hall had recovered its silence. He sat down in the leader's seat and asked, "What happened? Is there any news from Yundu and the others?" Upon hearing Yunshan voice his question, an old man in the hall quickly walked over and spoke respectfully while wearing a somewhat pale expression, reporting to sect leader, "The spiritual tablet of Yunfu and 3 other elders have suddenly burst apart a moment ago. The spiritual tablet of Yunsho and the other few elders have also become extremely dim. From the looks of the situation, they have obviously suffered serious injuries." The faces of everyone within the grand hall, including Yunshan, twitched intensely when the old man's words sounded. The experts whom they had dispatched to the capital were basically over half the strength of the current Misty Cloud sect. Everyone present believed that there was not a single faction within the Jioma Empire, with the exception of the Misty Cloud sect, who could block such a large lineup. However, the truth that was currently placed in front of them had ruthlessly thrown them a slap on their faces, causing them to be at a loss. "Elder Yun Cha, have you made a mistake?" The silence continued within the grand hall for a moment before dry laughter finally sounded. "How is this possible? That is 2 Do Huangs and 7 Do Wangs. Which faction within this capital had the ability to eat up all of them? By just relying on that Prima clan?" An elder who seemed to have quite a high status furiously spoke with a changing face. "Don't tell me that the 3 large clans and the imperial family joined hands," a person suddenly suggested, causing quite a number of people to quietly nod their heads. From the looks of it now, it seemed that this guess was the most reliable one. Since they actually dared to join hands and provoke us, the Misty Cloud sect, I would like to impeach sect leader to give the order to completely eradicate the 3 large clans and the imperial family from the Jioma Empire. That's right. Sect leader, the Misty Cloud sect will definitely not endure this kind of provocation. We must let them pay the price in blood. Yunshan's face was gloomy as his gaze swept toward the group of agitated elders and deacons. A moment later, his palm suddenly slammed violently on the table. The intense sound immediately shocked everyone within the hall. Their eyes fearfully looked at Yunshan, and did not quite understand why the latter would be this furious. It is not whatever nonsense 3 large clan joining hands. Yunshan stood up and spoke in a dark, solemn voice. That little bastard from the Xiao clan has returned. Xiao clan? Everyone was startled when they heard this. They were all at a loss. The small Xiao clan was now lingering on its last breath. How could they have the ability to defeat that large lineup of the Misty Cloud sect? The fury in Yunshan's heart grew even more intense when he saw the lost expressions on everyone's faces. However, just as he was unable to control himself and was about to burst out in anger, an exclamation finally sounded in the hall. "Don't tell me it's that Xiao Yang." Xiao Yang. The name that was deep within their memories set off the memory that had been hidden in everyone's mind for 3 years within a short instant. 3 years ago, that young man, who was not even 20 years old, had ascended the Misty Cloud Mountain by himself. He had relied on his own strength to contend with the entire Misty Cloud sect. Little bastard. Back then, you can be considered lucky to have fled. However, don't blame the old me for being vicious since you have come looking for me this time around. Sect leader, what should we do now? Should we send someone to go and rescue Elder Yundu and the others? A person in the Grand Hall finally recalled Yundu and the others who were on the brink of death. Yunshan mused for a moment after hearing this. He was just about to nod his head when the expression of Elder Yun Cha, who was managing the spiritual tablets of the many elders in the sect, changed. His voice was hoarse as he spoke. I think that it is not necessary. Their spiritual tablets have all burst apart. The entire place was shocked when these words were spoken. Their heads immediately felt giddy. That was 2 Do Huangs and 7 Do Wangs. This lineup had actually completely fallen within a short few hours. Such losses were something that the Misty Cloud sect had difficulty enduring. That bastard. He's too ruthless. Furious curses repeatedly sounded within the hall. However, when they spoke these words, all of them had forgotten that they did not show any mercy when they had attacked the Xiao clan back then. The gloominess on Yunshan's face was abnormally withdrawn in the face of such great losses. He waved his hand with an expressionless face and suppressed the commotion within the grand hall. His gaze flickered for a moment before he spoke in an indifferent voice. There is no longer a need to send anyone to the capital. That little bastard will come looking for us himself. Since that is the case, we shall quietly wait. Everyone was startled when they heard these words from Yunshan. Although there was an unwillingness in their hearts, they did not dare to object against Yunshan's decision. Hence, all they could do was respond respectfully. Tell everyone that the Misty Cloud sect will enter a high alert state from now on. Kill anyone who privately ascends the mountain. Yes, sir. Everyone felt a chill all over their bodies when they heard the dark chilly killing intent in Yunshan's words as they hurriedly responded. Yunshan immediately waved his hand and all of them swiftly swarmed out of the grand hall. The hall was once again completely silent after everyone had left. Yunshan's face twitched. A ferocity flashed across his eyes as he spoke in a dense manner. He is but a little bastard. Even though he currently possesses the strength of a Do Huang, this ancestor, refer to rank Do Zong, can still kill him easily. Once I capture him, I will let him taste a feeling that is worse than death. I am unconcerned about the grudge between the two of you. Coincidentally, he has returned. In that case, most of the members of the Xiao clan have been gathered. It also saves us the trouble of going to the Black Corner region to search for him. The black fog moved and a voice once again sounded. According to our information, Xiao Yan has the spiritual body of Yao Zunja within his body. It is likely that he has borrowed the help of Yao Chen's spirit in order to kill an expert, Do Wang with his Da Dosha strength. Leave Yao Chen for me to deal with the next time around. All you need to do is to capture Xiao Yang, Zunja, respectful term, for a Do Zun. Yunshan nodded slowly. A savage look surged onto his face as he spoke sinisterly. Relax. I will cripple that little bastard's Do Chi before handing him to you hopefully. However, I would like to remind you that it is best not to underestimate your opponent. Otherwise, your ending at that time might be exceptionally miserable. The black fog moved slightly, as that unusual laughter was once again emitted. Immediately, it strangely and slowly disappeared from within the grand hall, leaving behind the cold smile and savage face of Yunshan. The two human figures carried a sharp wind as they fell into the city. Finally, they smashed into the hard road like cannonballs. Immediately, a wild and violent strength swept out like floodwater. The enormous deep pit made an enormous crack line swiftly spread from the spot where the figures landed. Finally, it formed an extremely conspicuous crack line leading to a deep pit in the middle of the city. Dust drifted out from the deep pit before it was finally blown by the breeze and completely scattered. The two miserable human figures within it slowly appeared in front of the many gazes on the surrounding buildings. Yundu and Yunsho lay in the deep pit like corpses. Their clothes were in tatters and their faces were pale white. Bright red blood traces spread from their chests. Their originally powerful auras were extremely frail at this moment. The heavy thunderbolt-like attack by Xiao Yang earlier had sent them into a seriously wounded condition where even death was imminent. The two people in the deep pit tried their best to widen their eyes. Their eyes stared intently at the indifferent face of the black-robed young man in the sky, who was carrying a heavy ruler on his back. Their mouths moved slightly, they seemed to intend to say something. However, the sweetness that surged out from their throats caused them to spit out fresh blood from their mouths, drowning out their words. Fresh blood flowed down from the corner of their mouths. The spirit and life within the wide eyes of those two people swiftly elapsed. A moment later, both of their eyes gradually turned grey and their frail aura completely vanished. Jiao Xingtian, who had his hands behind him on the tall tower in the imperial city, also let out a long breath the instant that Yundu's and Yunsho's auras disappeared. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the black-robed, young man suspended in the distant sky. It was a long while later before he softly and slowly said, "This little fellow is really no longer that sentimental young man of the past." Within less than an hour, there were at least 4 Do Wangs and 2 Do Huangs who were defeated by Xiao Yang's hands. These kinds of merciless, vicious tactics were something that caused even an old wily fox like Jiao Xingtian to quietly inhale a breath of cold air. He gradually understood in his heart that the current Xiao Yang was likely someone who was more difficult to deal with compared to 3 years ago. The Misty Cloud sect has destroyed the Xiao clan, and Xiao Yang has killed many elders and disciples of the Misty Cloud sect. If one thinks in this way, there is not the slightest chance of them reconciling. Looks like the Jioma Empire will become even more chaotic in the future. Jiao Xingtian knit his brows and immediately sighed. He did not expect that Xiao Yang would bring so many experts with him when he returned. From the looks of the large lineup that had appeared earlier, it was likely that it was not any weaker than the Misty Cloud sect. From the looks of it, I will need to make contact with the Nalan clan, Mu clan, and the Alchemist Association. Since Xiao Yang has already returned, it will not be long before the decisive battle with the Misty Cloud sect. If one were to stand on the wrong side in this battle, it is likely that there will be trouble. Jiao Xingtian laughed bitterly and shook his head as he sighed. His gaze once again looked at the black-robed, young man in the distant sky. Only then did he turn around and slowly descend the tall tower. The disappearance of the 2 Do Huang's auras of Yundu and Yunsho also stirred quite a big commotion in some other places. An expert of such a level was considered the top existence even when placed within the 3 large clans. Moreover, the Nalan clan and the Mu clan did not even possess a single elite Do Huang. Hence, their inner hearts were extremely shocked and frightened when they saw 2 elite Do Huangs fall to the hands of that black-robed, young man in the distant sky with their own eyes. After they were shocked, they began to hesitate a little, just like Jiao Xingtian. With the current situation, Xiao Yang would definitely join together with the Primer clan. If he were to really defeat the Misty Cloud sect, the benefits that the Primer clan would gain would likely enable it to completely shake off the other 2 clans. Hence, at this moment, they needed to begin thinking of the benefits and losses involved, whether they were willing or forced to do so. Xiao Yang withdrew his gaze and waved his hand at Lin Yang and the others a short distance away. He immediately turned his body and looked toward Hai Budong, who was focused on the 2 corpses in the deep pit below. He smiled and said, "Old Hai, I'm sorry. I could not resist snatching your opponents away a moment ago." Hai Budong smiled bitterly and shook his head when he heard this. There was, however, some lingering fear in his heart. Even he was only able to vaguely see a silver-colored glow flashing past when Xiao Yang attacked earlier. After which, he saw the both of them give over 10 exchanges within a split second. A moment later, 2 elite Do Huangs, leaping around in a lively manner earlier, fell with serious injuries. That speed caused even his heart to feel a chill. He understood that if he was Xiao Yang's opponent, it was likely that his endurance would not be any better than these 2 fellows. "Old Hai, these 3 years, thank you very much." Xiao Yang flapped his flame wings and stopped in front of Hai Budong. He looked at the latter's smiling old face before whispering, "You little fellow. You have become a little maudlin after leaving for 3 years." Old Hai shook his head, laughed, and scolded him. Xiao Yang also smiled softly when he saw the smiling face of Old Hai. The serene sea storage ring on his finger flickered and a transparent jade bottle flashed and appeared. There was a deep purple-colored round medicinal pill within the jade bottle emitting an alluring luster. Old Hai was startled when he saw this medicinal pill. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.